All right, good morning everybody and welcome. Welcome to our Wednesday live stream session. And welcome back to our YouTube followers as well. Finally managed to get YouTube back online with our live stream, so I'm excited about that. And today we're going to do a bit of painting and have a bit of fun. So it should be good. So let us know where you're dialing in from. First of all, give me a thumbs up or say yes if it's coming through okay. And let me know where you are dialing in from. We'll give people a few minutes to join us. But hopefully you can all hear me okay. We're going to do something a little bit different today on our live stream. So welcome. Thank you whoever's given me hearts and likes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. Good morning, John. How are you? Good to see you again. Gladys, good evening. And Michelle, g'day Michelle, how are you? Good to see you. G'day Julie Chadwick. Good. We're all good to go. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. And what we're going to do is, g'day everyone who's joining us in on YouTube. We had a bit of a blackout on YouTube for a while, but we are back with YouTube. Long story, I'll tell you about it one day. So, g'day Jeraine, how are you? Jeraine left me a lovely message on our brand new podcast, a voicemail message. So thank you, Jeraine, I really appreciate that. Hopefully we'll get many more people listening to the podcast, so please spread it around with all your artist friends. I've got a lot of info to share with you. But what we're going to do today, so I've been in a bit of an experimental phase, doing things like this, just trying to push the boundaries, try new colour schemes, things like that. And this is a sort of a semi-abstract, if you like, view of the Glasshouse Mountains here in Queensland. Favourite subject of artists. So I'll pop that one out the way and I'll show you another one. So I think it's good as an artist to push the boundaries and try different things. This one's even a bit more experimental. Can never quite get the angles right, but there you go. More of a compressed view of Glasshouse Mountain. So I've been doing some experimental type things like that. And what I'm basically working on is putting together a body of work for exhibition purposes. So those ones are just experimental. But then I've been doing more finished work like this. I haven't actually secured it into the frame yet, so let me just fix that up. So I'm doing a river embankment, sort of outback river embankment series. And I'm calling these riverbanks and roots and the erosion of the soil. So I'm going to do a collection or a body of work on that. So we're going to have a bit of a play around with ideas like that, if that's okay with you guys. That's what we're going to do. All right. Good morning, Carol. Auckland, welcome. Good evening in Texas. Anne, how you going? Good to see you. So hopefully the stream will hold up okay. And good morning, Nahimi, over on YouTube. Welcome. All right. So we're going to do something like that. Now, it looks like my stream is breaking up a little bit. Let me just kill that one. Hopefully that'll be better. So, a couple of things. One of the other things I've been playing around with is the idea of a wet palette. As we're getting warmer here, heading into our summer, it gets humid, so I've been experimenting with a wet palette. This is from one of those experimental paintings, and a lot of this paint's still wet, which is good, because the problem with acrylics, as you know, is that the paint can dry out too fast. So I've been experimenting with this, and what we'll do is I'll do a little video on how I put this together, but basically it's just put a little bit more water into that. Basically it's just $2 shop material to put together this little wet palette. I know you can go and buy them already made up, but I thought I'll just see if I can make one myself. Yeah, it's lagging a bit. Don't know what to do about that. I think it's because I'm streaming both to YouTube and Facebook, but we'll persist with it. And hopefully it'll come good. G'day, Richard. Good to have you join us. So, we'll, that's what we're going to do, is do something like those paintings I showed you before. Completely experimental, completely made up. And it will be using colours that, you know, aren't really part of the Moore method of painting. And we'll get back to that next week. But more sort of an earthy palette. So that's phthalo blue, light red ochre. So I'm using colours I wouldn't normally use, right? Because of the subject matter. And I'm going to do this really loose. There's not going to be any real finessing details. I'm just going to do this as a very loose painting. Oh, I don't hate that. There it is. So, you'll be able to follow along and hopefully it'll all make sense to you. Okay. And the idea here is we're going to create an expressive sort of painting. I haven't put my colours out in a very neat and orderly way yet. An expressive sort of earthy painting. Trying to capture the Australian earthy tones. So I'm using Artilia Interactive Paint. I haven't got any clean water, but that's okay. And I'm going to use an old crusty brush for my drawing. It's an old flat brush. If you leave them in water too long, they tend to spray out like that. So perfect for doing drawings and things. G'day Beverly. Hi Chloe. G'day Jenny in Barossa Valley. Welcome. Good to see you. It's what we call baking paper, Gladys. Let me see. Oh, here it is. So I think maybe in the US, Canada, you guys call that parchment paper, but it's basically baking paper is what we call it. G'day, Colin. Yeah, Colin, that's kind of Colin saying that the riverbank paintings remind me of a cruise on the Murray. Well, it's kind of the inspiration behind it, I guess, is our rivers. And Stephen's saying he uses cheaper acrylic paints. They're a bit runny to begin with. Would you recommend this approach with the cheaper paints? Look, I really think that the best thing you can do with learning to paint is to try and get yourself some better quality paint because the pigment's so much better. Okay, so where I'd spend my money first would be get good quality paint, then good quality painting surfaces, and then lastly good quality brushes. I use real cheap brushes because after a painting's finished, what sits up on the wall is not the brushes, if you know what I mean. It's the paint and the painting surface. So that's what I would recommend. Morning, Gabrielle. How are you? All right, let's get underway. So this is going to be loose. It's going to be. For those who are coming in late, let me show you kind of what we're working towards here. So I started out by saying that I've been doing some paintings. I'm putting together a little body of work on this concept of sort of riverbanks, Australian riverbanks. Riverbanks and roots, and really the body of work is going to be about the erosion of the soil, but it's going to have deeper meanings than that as well. It's going to be the erosion of modern society and all of that sort of thing. So I'm just really playing with ideas here at the moment along those lines. So that's what we're going to do. All right. So with that said, let's get some paint happening. So yeah, I'm using acrylics, and I've made up a wet palette, which I've never really used before. Thought I'd give it a try as we head towards summer here, and it seems to be a pretty good idea. Not my idea, of course. So we're going to do riverbanks. So I'm going to keep the horizon line a little bit lower. I'm going to put an old tree on the riverbank with a root system there and roots running down there. Okay. Trying to work out why it's freezing up a bit at the moment. Morning, Brigitte. No, can't work it out. Okay. So we're going to do something like that. And what I want to have is down the bottom. So, you know, if you're thinking about the Moore method of painting, this is really step one. I'm doing a bit of a drawing, so I'm going to have shadows down here, okay? And I'm going to have a sort of reddy earth exposed in through there, and then a blue sky. So that would be kind of my drawing if we were considering step one of the Moore method of painting, right? It'd be something like that. This old sort of tree here, and exposed roots is what I'm going to be working on. Morning, Lisa. Cool. Okay. So I'll switch to a bigger brush. And all I want to do here at the moment, and again, have a look at that brush, right? It doesn't matter, really, if it's crusty like that. Now, if you're going to get into fine details, then sure, that might matter. But at this stage, we're not doing that, so we're not getting into fine details at this stage. We're going to put in a slightly darker tone in here to start us off, and then I'll put some lighter tones over it. Now this is a canvas panel, and may not quite get the effect that I was able to get on the stretch canvas. So did everyone have a chance to listen to the podcast yesterday? I hope you did. I know a few of you did. So I appreciate you guys who have had a listen to it. I'm going to aim the podcast more at those who are really pressing towards developing a career as an artist, rather than, you know, just starting out. Because I think I do plenty of work on the absolute beginner side, but I would like to help those of you who want to develop your art into either a part-time or a full-time career. I want to help you do that, because I've been blessed to be able to do it myself. So I think it would be a good idea to help others with it as well. Okay, now I'll just get another brush. So this is going to be my earthy red tone brush. So I'll get another brush for the darks, a larger brush. And you know, I'm really just experimenting here. I have no real plan, and I think it's a good idea to do some experimentation. So I put some shadow effects in here. And the series that I'm going to do along these lines is really about soil erosion, drought, you know, that type of thing. Things that are pretty devastating to our environment. So it's really environmental sort of you know, it'll be a statement on the environment, but also on the fabric of society, like erosion, breaking away, if that makes sense. Cheryl says I use a wet palette all the time. If not finished with the painting, I put a lid on it. Yep. Leave it in the fridge. Okay, that's interesting. Hi, Sue. watching this at a later time. Interesting, nice to see new ways of painting. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Beverly. Awesome. G'day, Lisa. Welcome on YouTube there. There is no reference photo. I'm making this up. It's just part of experimentation, Lisa. Thanks, Colin. Glad you enjoyed the podcast, mate. If you haven't heard the podcast, you'll find it on our YouTube channel, but also the podcast is called The Artist's Soul, and you'll find it on Spotify and Anchor, and it'll soon be on iTunes as well. All right. So as I said, we're just going to experiment here, but what I want to create is a feeling of exposed tree roots. Maybe just a little bit there. Now the only problem with doing this, of course, is it's going to make that all wet. Like really wet. So I won't be able to paint back into that straight away. That's all right. I'll just get my sky brush. This is my sky brush. Get some cobalt blue. Now, and what I want to try and create is a feeling of like, you know, baking hot weather and the sun sort of cooking the side of the embankment there. So we need a really warm sort of sky. Well, no, not a warm sky. What am I trying to say? I don't know. I've forgotten what I was trying to say. But we need a sky that represents like a super hot, warm day. Is what I think I'm trying to say. So I'll use the cobalt blue. And I'll put in just a pinhead of the red. Alright. Can't be pure saturated colour, I don't believe. Wants to just be toned back a little, so that's why I put a little pinhead of the red in there. Add a little touch of the warmth in there. So I've always been the kind of person to experiment and take risks with my painting in particular. And I guess it's part of what, you know, where I'm up to with my painting career. So I've been painting for November 2010 I did my first oil painting. So that's coming up 9 years, and I've spent a lot of that time building Learn to Paint Academy and so on. But with the start of a new decade, and this is a good question for all of you, right? Start of a new decade, what is your art goals? What are your goals for your art over the next 10 years? Now, I know that's a long time, but if you are at all interested in building a career out of your art, you have to think, I think, in terms of decades. I think most professional artists will tell you it took them a good 10 years to really get a foothold, unless they're exceptional, which obviously I'm not. There's maybe a few that do it in less than a decade to achieve financial success and other types of success. All right. So this is what I would consider in the Moore method of painting, even though the approach today is very different. I would consider this to be step 2, our blocking. Okay. And don't make your sky all neat, straight lines. Mix it up a bit. If you ever get a chance to go to the gallery, the National Gallery in Victoria at Flinders Street Station there, and go and look at the Arthur Streeton paintings and his skies. He's got these big chunky flat brush marks all the way through his sky, but they're kind of all angular, they're not horizontal. That's for those of you who are in Australia, I guess. I'll just lighten off that a little bit in the bottom. All right, feel free to ask me questions, guys, as we go, because I'm about to pause momentarily. And just need to let that dry a little touch, don't we? It's really wet in there. Because I'm using a canvas panel, so normally I use a squirty bottle and it with a canvas, stretch canvas. This is a canvas panel, and it's probably not soaking in the water as well as the stretch canvas did. However, you can see I've used the same process in this one. If you have a look down the bottom, you can see those runs there. That's basically because I use a squirt bottle here and let it all run, and then I've utilised some of those to create the effects of roots in the embankment, and then I've come back in and put thicker paint over the top there, which is what I plan to do here. But I might need to use some paper towel or something just to dry it off. So we'll see what happens with that. All right. Hi Lena, welcome. Morning Marg in Bagara, welcome back. Morning Rosalie, up in Bendigo. Go to the gallery in Bendigo. Great gallery there. And Ballarat. Love those galleries. Geraint, my goal is more plein air and some sales to help with costs. Yeah, that's a good goal. My goal is a Margaret Olley style. Yeah, that'd be pretty handy. She was a great artist. So yeah, good goals, Geraint. What about everyone else? Do you have goals for the coming decade for your art career? Lisa is saying she loves drips. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I really like that sort of effect. Now, you know, that's going to need a fair bit of work to tidy that up and make it look good, but I do like that style myself. And I'm also going to start experimenting with some mixed media as well, just purely, you know, for my own development and so on. Lisa's saying she wants to be a professional artist. Well, Lisa, you can do it. There's no doubt about that. It takes a lot of dedication, hard work. But if you tune into my new podcast, The Artist's Soul, and that's what we're going to be talking about, is how do you develop yourself as an artist, and then how do you go on and become a full-time professional artist. Thanks, Gladys. Gladys is saying it looks very organic with the drips. Do you ever paint on things other than canvas? Yes, I paint on MDF boards as well, which I prepare myself. I'll show you an example. And in fact, with our Noosa workshop, 3-day Noosa workshop coming up, we will be painting on MDF boards, plein air. So there we go. So yeah, definitely paint on other surfaces. All right. Yes, that's a good point, Julie. Julie's saying to go and see the Margaret Olley exhibition at the Queensland Art Gallery. It is fantastic. Highly recommend it. Geraint, probably already seen it, I suppose. Hey Gail, welcome. Lisa's saying, I'm hoping to improve more in the next 3 years. I feel as though I have improved so much in the 2 years I've been with you. Thank you very much. Yeah, next 3 years is a time where you could really move from, you know, just getting a feel for painting. I won't say struggling with it, because you're not struggling, but if you are an artist who is struggling, then over the next 3 years you could move beyond that to doing really good quality work. But it does take dedication and commitment. The best way to do it, I think, is obviously get the knowledge that you need. You need to get the fundamentals and the knowledge, but paint every day. You know, if you can paint every day, even if it's small paintings, right? Then do that over the next 3 years, you'll do about 1,000 paintings, and you'll definitely improve. As long as every time you do a painting, you let the painting teach you what you need to do to improve, right? If you can learn that art of getting feedback from your own paintings, then you will definitely improve. So good goals there, Lisa. Lena, what type of paint are you using? Let me show you. I'm using acrylic paint, the Artilia Interactive. It's my preferred acrylic paint, and I'm not using my usual palette that we normally teach beginners in. In the Moore method of painting, I'm using an experimental palette, mostly earthy colours. Okay, but definitely this one's acrylic. But I also use water mixable oils, Lena. John's goal is bigger art classes and not teaching at a school for the bread and butter. Yeah, well, you can certainly do that, John. You've been with us for long enough to be able to watch what I do. So it's all about building your own audience, right? And owning an email database, whether you're teaching or you are wanting to sell your work. The bigger your own email database that you have, that you can email people, then the bigger the business grows, right? It's a pretty basic sort of thing, but that's what the strategy is, the audience building. Okay. Julie, I've lay-byed her book. Yeah, I've got one of her books as well. They had their exhibition down at Tweed River Gallery. The spray is a common everyday garden variety spray bottle, and inside is water. That's it, just water. I don't tend to use mediums and things very much, so yeah, we're talking about water in there. Michelle's been painting for 40 years and learning every day. That is the best attitude, isn't it? I think I'll be learning until the day I drop. Great thing about painting, especially if you become a full-time artist, you don't have to retire. I plan on painting and teaching until I'm well into my 80s, maybe 90. So, I got my eyesight and manual dexterity. Lisa's asking, how do you find your style? The only way to really find your style is to paint a lot, and through that, you keep seeking different ways of expressing yourself, and over time you repeat certain things that appeal to you, and you drop things that don't resonate with you so much, and over time your style appears. So I don't think my style has fully developed yet. If you look at my Rodmore art, as opposed to Learn to Paint Academy, because in Learn to Paint Academy, obviously I'm trying to teach a wide range of subjects and styles to suit everyone. But for my own painting, for my own sales, I've been nudging my work in a certain direction over time, over the last 3 or 4 years. It takes time to find your style. So you just got to paint a lot, and also look for influences. So, I started out, I showed a couple of those Glasshouse Mountain paintings, right? So I'm always looking for influences of different out of the box, not what I'd normally look at, and trying to incorporate more of that into my approach. So one artist that I sort of love is a guy called Joe Furlonger, right? Very much an abstract artist, and you can see he did a series on the Glasshouse Mountains. So, I go and seek out other inputs. Now, I don't think I'll ever get as abstract as these, but there's something about the feel of them that I really like. So look for other influences and allow someone to absorb into you. Don't copy anyone, of course, but allow it to absorb into you and your approach. Joanne's saying her short-term goal is paint daily. That's a great goal, even if you only just do something small. It's definitely worth doing. Kathy, I listened to your podcast too. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to do it at least weekly, but I might even drop more episodes than that because I've got a lot to say. Rightly or wrongly, I'm obviously an opinionated person who's done a lot of things in the last 9 years, made a lot of mistakes. I've made more mistakes than I've got right, so, but I think that's just part of the process of learning. My pleasure, Lena. I am purely a hobby painter, but really enjoying it. That's great, Carol. you know, there's nothing wrong with being a hobby artist either. And I think the same principles apply of learning to paint and so on. Yeah, I think it's at my end, Rosalie, the issues with the connection, so I apologise for that. It's a bit of a hit and miss scenario, unfortunately. Stephen saying, I've only been painting for a few months. I've done a few of your beginner tutorials and I've definitely gotten better. That's the idea. Good stuff, Stephen. So when you've only been painting for a few months, it's all about getting the knowledge you need, like the information, and then it's about practicing that information. They're the two things to focus on. And I'm about to record a 4-part video series on the Moore method of painting and break each step down into more detail. So look out for that. You know, if you haven't registered for our free course yet, then you can do so, and I'd highly recommend it. Learntopaint.info. There's a whole free course there. Definitely go and do that as well. We'll get back to painting in 1 second. Lisa, is doing a sketchbook really necessary? I paint daily, but not a sketchbook. Lisa, I don't have a regular sketchbook practice, but I feel like it would improve everything that I do, right? So it's something I want to build in and incorporate as I go. Is it necessary? I don't think anything's necessary. The most necessary thing is that you just do what you are passionate about and that you enjoy. There's no rights or wrongs or rules in art. You know, you just do what feels good for you. But you know, you get to plateaus as well. You get to a certain point where you just feel stuck and you can't break through. So when you hit those plateaus, then it's time to maybe look at things like, what can I add? What can I do differently? How can I approach this differently? And maybe a sketchbook fits in as part of that process. My pleasure, Gladys. My pleasure. Gabrielle's saying she loves my recent glasshouse paintings. They were really experiments. I don't know that I'll put those out yet. Maybe work on them a bit more, but thank you. The podcast is called The Artist's Soul, and it's on Spotify and Anchor, and it will be on iTunes in the next few weeks. Or if you go to the learntopaint.online and look under the tab, one of the tabs there, Learn to Paint podcast, I'll be posting every episode up there as well. Michelle's saying, no such thing as a mistake, only an opportunity to learn. Absolutely, it's all in how you look at things. Gabrielle, I love your generosity in sharing what you... my pleasure, Gabrielle. You know, I like sharing because I struggled a lot when I started out. The first 3 or 4 years I felt was a real struggle, and you know, I would have really benefited by somebody who would, you know, freely share all they knew. And I was happy to pay for more advanced courses and things like that as well, which I still do today. You'd be surprised how many different courses and things I pay for and enroll in because, you know, I want to learn. I'm passionate about it. G'day, Sandra. All right, enough jibber-jabbering, as someone once said to me. Let's have a look at this. I'll pop that web address back up soon. Now this is really wet. It's going to be difficult to work over, so what I'm going to do is I am going to get some paper towel and just see if we can't dry out some of this, which means, unfortunately, it means losing some of it, but I'll try and keep the main part there. Actually, it's not too bad. All right, so now we shift our focus and we go. I want to have a lighter patch right through here, and then sort of some darker earthy tones, and then sort of dropping down into the shadows down there where we'll put a couple of trees. So let us think about having to do that. And I think probably our trusty little palette knife is the way. All right, there's our palette knife. So I'll get some of this yellow, that red ochre. Mix that up. Now don't over mix your paint. I like it broken up with some broken colour in there. Okay, a nice light tone. I'm just going to load it up like that. And I think right through here. So it is still pretty wet, so I've got to be careful I don't make it too mucky. Just there. So, you know, over recent times I've added a fair bit of palette knife work to what I'm doing, and I've been experimenting with different colour schemes and things like that, and I'd encourage you to do similar. Don't get stuck in a rut with what you're doing. There's so many different approaches. So one of the things that I'm going to start experimenting with is pushing more in a multimedia direction. So I want to paint more contemporary sort of landscapes, and I've bought myself some pastel oils, or some oil pastel sticks, and I'm going to start utilising those and start with my blocking in acrylic, and then doing this sort of knife work over the top in oils, and using, you know, these pastel oil sticks as well to create marks. And I'm looking for different ways of creating interesting marks. You know, moving sort of in a semi-abstract. It's still representational. I mean, you can still tell it's a tree and so on, but heading a little bit in the abstract direction. Because I like the idea of being able to express myself without having to literally paint things. Not saying there's anything wrong with literally painting things. I enjoy that as well. Okay, get a little bit of darker tones here now. And for those of you who have seen my loose, bold and expressive painting course, you'll have seen the different ways I've been approaching mark making in that. You know, scraping back. This canvas panel doesn't lend itself well to scraping back because it doesn't really stain through. That well. Okay, just get a. So this wet palette seems to work well, because normally this paint will be starting to dry off and I'd be struggling to move it. I'd be having to rehydrate it and so on, but it's staying quite wet there. So it's taken me 4 years in Queensland to work out that that would be a good idea. Call me a slow learner. I don't know. Maybe I am. Now, I'm going to put this root here. A friend of mine, Marietta, has just been on a holiday, and she was at some river location where she took a photo of this tree on top of a riverbank, just like this. I was telling her this, what I was painting at the moment. She goes, "Oh, I've got photos of this old tree." And so this is what this tree is basically from her photo. Not a copy of it, but just inspired by it. All these old roots exposed above the earth. Oh, keep doing that. Alright, are you all still with me? Are we all following along? Jerane's saying a hairdryer. Yeah, Jerane, I kind of don't use a hairdryer because I find it flattens the paint out a bit. Sorry you've lost me there, Kathy. I hope I'm back. My pleasure, Gladys. Stephen just signed up for the free course. Terrific. Appreciate that, Stephen. I think you'll enjoy that. You love our teaching method. I've tried painting along with other people on YouTube and it never goes well. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I try and simplify things right down. I think that's part of the benefit of what we do. God's Temple. Grateful to watch this. God bless you. Thank you, God's Temple. Gladys is saying amen. Thank you. I'm looking to do oils over acrylics too, yeah. So we might do some of that on our live stream or in our weekly lessons. Ianopolis. G'day, mate. How are you? You didn't have to donate $100, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. For those that don't know, Ian runs a painting channel on YouTube as well, so go and check him out. But that's very generous of you, Ian. Thank you. Gladys, love these rich, warm colours. Yeah, me too. Like very much Australian earthy tones is what I'm going for. Catherine, it's either wet palette or air conditioning. Yeah, I've thought about the air conditioning. Getting my studio air conditioned here, but don't know whether it might dry it out too much. G'day, Nan. How are you? Good to see you. Robert Hudson, do you ever do any portraits? I'm a total beginner and I like people. Good question, Robert. I am going to start teaching myself portraits, so it might take 6 months to a year before we'll start doing those as courses and projects, but definitely I want to do that as well. What I am doing though is with one of our regulars here at the Learn to Paint Academy, she and I are co-authoring a course on figures, romantic figures in the landscape, and she's just sent me some of her video the other day and it's looking really good, and I'm going to add content to that, and we're going to talk about adding figures into a landscape but in a romantic sort of fashion. So look out for that. That's going to be coming in the next month or two, but portraits will be 2020 for sure. That's one of my goals. John says, found some water mixable oils at the supply store. Excited and then discovered they had absolutely no stock of white. Oh, bugger. Particular brand from the US made by Weber. Don't know them. Can be used with regular oils as well. Okay. Just question someone asked on one of the sessions you did. Okay. Thanks, John. Use a dryer on the back side of the canvas. Well, this is a canvas panel, like it's a hard panel, so I don't know that that would work, but it's an interesting idea, Joan. Yeah, I think with a stretch canvas, absolutely. Thank you for that tip. Michelle's loving the way this painting is going. Well, I haven't even really got underway with it yet. Yeah, John's saying he enjoys Ian's channel. It's certainly a good one. Ian's very popular in the States. Must be that Aussie accent of his. Over in WA. All right, now let me just move some of this paint around here. And we need to start to bring this together a bit more than what it is at the moment.